Hey everyone, my name's Nathan Pay, and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We have Miles here with us, except our setting is a little different than normal this time, huh?
Things are a wee bit different. I am now in my own studio in my basement.
Mm,
Hopefully it looks okay. I don't know about the lighting a little bit, but we're going to work on that. And
hmm
hopefully you can hear my voice clearly because we're going to have to be doing remote coffee and cryptos for the time being and probably for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, we do this with all the project leaders we interview, anyways. I'm just in an Airbnb right now, so I'm moving here in a couple days, so I'll be set up in a more permanent studio then. But I
The
feel
old
like
Alzante Wi-Fi.
yes, that's right. But I feel like it's been a while since we had a chance to get one out. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about, and
And things have been moving.
things have been moving. So let's just jump right into it. I want to talk about some of the regulatory stuff that's going on with play to earn and maybe the Epic Games thing that you recently wrote an article about. That was pretty
Yeah, so
interesting.
that's a big one for me. So
Why
Epic
don't we
Games,
start there?
I guess they were sued by like a coalition of parents who have been noticing charges on their credit card coming from Epic Games, coming from games
Mhm.
like specifically what's that game called?
Fortnite.
Fortnite. A lot of people are spending loads and loads of money on really rare and expensive skins. Generally, these people are kids who have access to their parents' credit card information. And one of the reasons why they're one of the allegations is that there's not adequate securities in place to control a child who has access to their parents' credit card and the ability to buy these things. Um, and so I just sort of thought about it a little bit, and I was like, well, this is exactly the issue that I think that Web3 is trying to address. Web3 system of Fortnite, their children would either have the ability or not, set by their parents using two-factor authentication, to buy these skins, and if they did, they would also have the ability to resell them and get some of their money back if they didn't want to play the game anymore, or if they made a purchase and their parents decided that it wasn't worth it, or something along
Yeah.
those lines.
Well, it's also a
So
lot harder to revert charges now for games and stuff like that because there used to be scams on like getting your refunds and doing all this refund stuff where now credit card companies are just kind of like, well, too bad. So that's a bit
yeah,
unfortunate
it's
too.
like too bad, so sad. $20,000, otherwise, you're in trouble.
I mean, I'm
And
sure you can escalate things to fraud depending on the circumstances, and there's other things. But even I know for Fortnite, I buy skins for my daughter. It can save your credit card, and it doesn't even ask for the CVC code.
yeah, no,
It's
they
just
just have it now.
you
The
just
same thing
click.
with the
That's
Nintendo
right.
Switch Marketplace. Once you put your credit card information into the Nintendo Switch Marketplace, even if your credit card expires, it seems that it is still valid for a Nintendo Switch because I haven't updated mine, and my Nintendo Switch online is still active.
Yeah, they'll
So
just make you do it when they finally try to charge.
yeah,
But
once you
oh,
go onto the marketplace, oh hey, we would like you to update your card.
yeah, and it's interesting because Epic is, kind of at the forefront of the whole NFT thing. They decided to allow NFT games where Steam didn't, and maybe adding this blockchain technology. And I mean, there's also like you want as least friction as possible too, right? And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's worth talking about because you made the perfect comparison about how Web3 can solve some of this. A game wants it to be easy. Like, of course, Epic Games want people to just click a few buttons and a payment to process. Having even one extra step with the code or anything makes it more difficult. But I mean, look at what happened because of it. And another step is, even not just 2FA wallets, hardware wallets. If purchasing something through MetaMask, you need a hardware wallet. You have to have that physical device. I don't necessarily see parents giving their kids access to their hardware wallets for crypto
Well, and
as
the other thing
frequently as
is,
a
if
credit
somehow
card.
their child was able to find it in the shoebox and pull it out and do the thing,
You need
it's
the
completely
PIN,
transparent. You need
all
that.
that
You need a
stuff.
pin. You need to be able to verify it. But then once it gets verified, well, it's completely transparent. It's on chain now, so it can't be sort of refuted, and that will enable parents to go, hey, we can prove that you did this,
Yeah,
um,
it's
and
interesting. It's
and set
interesting.
up parameters in the future so that that might not happen again.
Absolutely. Now just kind of moving along, I think this one is an interesting one. A lot of projects we heard it was shrapnel first kind of stopped or halted US users from
Yeah.
pulling rewards out. And now it seems to be kind of cascading and happening to a fair few projects where they're kind of just like, and it doesn't even seem to be only US based companies that are doing this. It's companies that are just like, if we lock out the US, we don't have to worry about all that crap. And
So
it's
what
really
I think is going
interesting.
on is a lot of developments have happened, macro developments in the U.S. government, especially the SEC versus different crypto companies in their cases. And while
Mhm.
those crypto companies have won, the SEC has made it clear that even NFTs and NFT projects that are positioned in a way where there is a third party that is advertising expected profits to their potential shareholders. You know what I mean? That they're going to come after them and try to claim that it's a security. And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of games are either switching to a Web2 model and just deserting their Web3 users, which I think is kind of despicable, but you can't really blame them because in such a bear market and with seemingly no way out, the best option would be to just like make their game into a Web2 game, release it on Steam. Now they can make some money and they get their payout and they can start the next project, whatever that might
Yeah, but
be.
you just got to
And
be
then for
careful.
other companies, we have these companies who are just restructuring their system
Yep.
to sort of to keep these red flags in the SEC eye sort of in check. For example, making sure that their project isn't saying, okay, well, if you invest in our game, then you'll make an X amount of APR, return on your tokens or whatever. What they're actually saying is, invest in our game. We're developing something really great. We want you to play the game and have a lot of fun playing it. And early investors might get perks. And I think
Yeah,
that's a much safer way to do it.
I do too. And really, they're going after companies that used NFTs to fund the project. And you know what?
Yeah,
Like,
that's another big one.
part of me likes that and part of me doesn't. Of course, decentralization is the theme of crypto, and ultimately that's what I want to see more than anything. I do not agree with all the how the SEC has been like this claw holding the industry down. I mean, look at what happened to Binance US. It happened to Canada first. Binance was like, see you later, Canada. And then it was like, see you later, US. And all
Yeah.
their top chief executive or their chief officers started stepping down. But there was a lot of play to earn projects that really did just mint and sell a ton of NFTs with a promise or a fancy little light paper or white paper, raised millions of dollars, and then disappeared.
So
And there
here's
does
I
need to
have
be some
something to say
protection
about that.
against that.
Um, in the traditional finance world, when somebody wants to create a company, raise capital, and then start a company, they would generally approach a bank, and the bank would go, "Okay, well, where's your collateral? What's your credit rating? Give me some history so that I know that this is a safe investment before they give them some money and they can start whatever venture they have up." But now, with a system that we currently have without regulation, it's really just at the mercy of companies and individual investors who might invest. And so, individual people are pretty easy to trick. Um, and there's no like laws or credit ratings or any sort of way to validate those individual investors, um,
That's right.
or to validate companies that are offering whatever it might be that they're offering to those individual investors. And since it's so easy to create these things, and people give them value, then all you have to do is create a big hubbub and make some hype, as they would say, and it becomes valuable because people start looking at it and investing in it, thinking, what's going on here? You know what I mean? So what there
Yep.
really needs to be is some real concrete regulation in place that prevents this from happening at that very level. These people, these companies can't just come up and go, okay, I'm making a thing, we're looking for investors, does anybody want to invest? There has to be like, okay, well, who are you, and what have you got, and do you have a plan, and do you have the financial ability to carry this plan out?
Yeah, and it's interesting because venture capital is kind of different too, right? Like you could just have a good idea, go to VCs and get money. You can kind of avoid the bank that way. But I mean, during the bull run, it was interesting. You'd get on a call with the VC, and in 15 minutes, halfway through a light paper, and they're like, "How much you want?" Here's 50. Like they were just throwing money at projects, left, right, and
No,
center.
and you can't blame them either, because if you were a VC going, okay,
And
well, there's no rules here. These people are just going to generate a bunch of hype and I'll make 1,000%. And this is going to fail in a month. And I know that, but
but
I'm going to
that's a
make a
little
1,000%.
different.
So,
But I that's a little better than the other way, and I'll kind of explain why. With venture capital, you're on the hook for your investors, and these investors will take legal action. There's things they can do to go after you as an individual. You make the bed you lay in, I think is the saying. You're working for them as a business owner, essentially. But when these projects would just mint mass NFTs and bootstrap the entire development of their project off of the back of their community, they have no responsibility. It feels like it was a lot easier for them just to be like, peace, we're gone. Because the chance that any one of those individuals in the community actually seek legal action was slim to none.
well, and
So
this circles back to regulation too. There's no regulation in place to prevent that.
that's right. So I think we're past the whole, and there's a project that we ran into recently, Golden Tides. I think it's worth mentioning them here quickly because what I really liked about them is they're like, hey, we've been building for 2 years. We haven't sold any NFTs or tokens. We wanted to make a viable product first, and we're not even going to be doing that super soon. And I was like, wait, you guys have been doing that for 2 years? Like, we're talking to projects now, how that's the new way forward is not bootstrapping your community off of
Well,
NFTs
so
with the
that was a
props
huge
built
green
later.
flag for me when they approached us also, because it's like, okay, these guys 2 years out of the 5 years of your average development cycle. And then so now I should be able to see an alpha, get to see something
That's right.
playable. And so we got to see their minimum viable product, and it is of the quality of a game that should has been in 2 years development. Even with a small team, it's really, really impressive. So
The Avalon's another good example, like privately funded. I mean, I know
yeah,
there's
small team.
others, but it's not like a bunch of VC companies. It's not quite the same as some of the others. And yes, they have NFTs that are helping fuel the development, but they're usable in a game, in the playable alpha right now. And it's interesting to see the direction that all these games are going. But like when I talk to a fair few of them, especially the ones in the US, they're just like, I'm meeting with lawyers every second or third day, and they're actually kind of pissed at how much it's costing them. Like these
Yeah,
attorneys are
yeah.
just making a lot of money trying to help them navigate all this. But the truth is, there is a lot going on. Maybe not being US based is more important. Go over to Singapore, have an
Well, from a business
IBC.
standpoint, I mean, they're spending money every day on maybes when they could be somewhere else where they don't have to spend any money on maybes and they can just do what they need to do.
That's right. And then there's other projects that we believe in deeply that did bootstrap, with NFTs in the beginning, because that's just how it was done. So it's not
Mm.
necessarily, you can't blanket say, this model's wrong, this one's right. But when there's regulations in place that are now starting to say, this is what they're looking for, well, then yeah, move towards that direction. I mentioned this in a recent video. We still live in the real world. So regardless if we like it or not, we have to follow these regulations. OpenSea and Coinbase is a great example of this. On OpenSea, you cannot buy NFTs on your phone, on your Apple device from OpenSea. So if OpenSea has to deal with these compliance things, why doesn't every other project have to too?
And
So
that's right.
it's interesting to see. And I think this next 6 months in particular, especially as we work towards the halving, and who knows what's going on with the state of the world, but we're going to see more and more projects, the serious ones, the ones who are smart, are continuing to build properly, have properly allocated their funds, because really we're just kind of watching all of the bullshit
So
fall.
yeah, that's kind of what I've been looking at for the last
They're
three
going to do
months. If
good.
I had to like describe my workflow, it's mostly been like, okay, who's still there, who's still working, who's still building, keep that checklist. It gets smaller and smaller basically every week. And now we're at the point where those people, that small list, they're approaching us. They're going, hey, we're almost there. We're ready to, roll out the next phase of our thing. We want you guys to play, or we would like you guys to see it, or play testing, or whatever it might be. And that's a good sign for me. They're in line with the season, the
Yeah.
October, let's play video games because it's getting cold season, and they've
For
got minimum
you.
viable products that, yeah, for me maybe, not for you, I guess, Mr. El Zonte.
That's right.
But yeah, so then they have minimum viable products that are actually fun to play. They look pretty good. They're
Mm.
working towards making them look super pretty and being on that point where they're at the AAA level, and
Yep.
that's just in time, for things to change sort of economically, hopefully, and that would be the spark for a really good, I guess, winter season of gaming.
Yes. And it's interesting too. Maybe let's pivot a little bit and talk about the whole transition from Web 2 to Web 3, because some projects are taking this route to kind of get away from the regulatory issues, the compliance, and honestly, just the liquidity. Like, let's be frank, right now, if you are just targeting a Web 3 player base, and you're a play to earn game or just a game, you're limiting. There's kind of two factors here that I think of right away. You're limiting your potential player pool, and marketing is so much more different. The model isn't as refined, and there's very few experts in the industry. If you have a Web 2 audience, you're tapping into the whole world potentially based on how far you can get your game out there. And two, the marketing models are already well known. It's not rocket science. People
That's
know
right.
how to market for video games. That's been done for decades at this point.
I'd say my example for this would be Karma vs. Zombie. They've done a
Mm.
very good job of marketing to and retaining their Web2 users. However, on the flip side, I have had people who are Web2 video gamers, like several of them, I can't really think of or speak of them by name, but that have said, they're not a fan of projects in the future having Web2 sort of faces and then having Web3 components hiding in the background that they don't know about. And whether they understand or don't understand why those Web3 mechanics might be there, it's like an instant red flag for a lot of people right now. So we need to really educate people and maybe change that opinion a little bit.
Well, here's the
Now, that's
thing too.
mostly a North American opinion, and a lot of the people in the East have the exact opposite opinion.
That's
And I
right.
think they are going to help us to change that opinion by showing people that these ecosystems can work.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's like the West is just going to fall behind. Like
It's already happening.
we've been in power for so long. I don't think that's changing overnight, but it is already happening. In these smart countries like Japan. I mean, look at what's going on in Dubai. There was a big crypto conference there with tens of thousands of people. It was
Well,
massive,
and we've got Hong Kong with like multiple
right?
large exchanges such as OKX that are going to have their licenses there soon. And those
Mm-hmm.
people have a lot of money and they don't want to invest in the housing market because the Chinese housing market is actually failing right now. In fact, the Chinese are doing whatever they can to cover up just how much their housing market is failing right now. And that housing market is largely invested in by people who are looking for places to park and grow their money. So if those people can't park and grow their money in housing and there's not a lot of other choices inside of their country
Right.
and crypto suddenly becomes an option, it's likely that we'll see some influx there.
We will. And I like there's a couple different routes you can go here. There's the Web3 isolated version, and then you have your Web2 isolated. Like Haunted Space is a great example for this because when they first came out, they were like, yeah, we're on PS5, we're gonna be on Xbox, we're gonna be on
Mm.
thing. And it was like, wait, how are you doing that? And they're like, oh, well, the Web2 version is its own server, its own game. You can't play with Web3 people. But if you have the Web3 version on your PC, it's completely different. I was like,
Yeah, you
oh,
had this
a
balloon of hype
clone
instantly blown up. Yeah. Okay, we
like
don't
a
care anymore.
clone. And I was like, I kind of like that, but I don't. But I was like, hey, at least they're bridging a divide some way because they did
Yeah,
say you could transfer your progress from the non-crypto one into the crypto one later, but I don't think you could go backwards. And they might have changed that now. But I was like, oh, that's a step in the right
it's
direction.
not the worst idea because then if people do end up playing the non-crypto version, get really invested in it, get a really strong account or whatever,
And then
and
they get
later on go that
curious.
I don't want to play this game anymore, but I'm curious if it's worth anything, then they'll go and check the crypto thing out, find out that they can make their $80 back and be like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then there's other projects, where basically they just threw everybody under the bus and went, nope, no more Web3, we're Web2. Sorry you bought NFTs,
Yeah,
but they're still building, they're still releasing their game. But what just happened to all the investors and people that bootstrapped their development team that let them start? It's like they just rug pulled everybody in Web3.
pretty
And
much.
it's
And I
weird.
spoke about that a little bit earlier. It's kind of not their fault because of the tumultuous environment that they're in,
Yeah.
but they have a choice of how to handle it, I suppose you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And just going straight to Web 2 and shutting the door on anybody who tries to talk about Web 3, I think is the wrong way to
Me
approach that.
too. Me too. You got to be transparent about it, especially when these are the people that supported you the most and you invested in their project. But you're right about the like, it's not, I can understand it too. If they're like, hey, we've got to close down, it's over.
I would
Or
say
here's the
addressing this issue
option.
right now, the most probably elegant solution that I've seen comes
Mhm.
in Avalon the Druids. I would say they're creating a Web 2 game and with a separate application that's Web 3 based that can be transacted with the game so that you can eventually sell your NFTs that you would use inside of the game. So the NFTs are inside of the game, but they're game pieces. You know what I mean? And then later on, if you decide that you would like to make some money in this game, you can sell your NFTs, which are
We can
game pieces,
sell them right now. You
to
just
other
got to
people.
take them out of the game. But you're right. There's like this system where you own the NFT and then they give you
Well,
the
it's very closely mirroring what a lot of the Wall Street folks want to do with tokenizing real life
that's right.
assets. If they tokenized real life assets, it would work exactly like this. You would have, the Calgary Tower, for example, would be an NFT asset that could be bought and sold from one to another. Whoever holds
Mm.
that NFT is the controller, the owner of the Calgary Tower. And because these things are uniquely identifiable, and if they were to put proper, laws in place that would reinforce this, it would work. It would work very well, and it would put
Yep.
a lot of the power back in the hands of the people.
I think so too. So it's cool to see, you know what? I feel blessed to be part of this industry, watching it grow every day, and people like us getting to really, have it part of our job to be researching this,
Me
figuring out
too.
what's going on,
Every
and
day I wake up, I'm
seeing,
like, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have the job that I've got.
right, and seeing the evolution of it all. Like I can only imagine that what it was like for people back when the internet was going through the same thing. But I just feel like this is so much faster, and it's telescoping the rate of advancement. I feel like if I take a month off of crypto, I'm just so far behind. I need to get caught up. It's kind of,
Me
I
too.
like that.
Me
I
too.
really
Even
like
when I'm
that.
not working, like, I mean, there's a couple weeks there in the summer where I wasn't working. I was out doing different things that are summer things, but I was
Mhm.
always coming back to check on my crypto news just to see what was going on in case there was some random thing that happened that I needed to be on top of.
That's right. And then I think this ties into the Mavia. I want to talk a little bit about them because the way that they're approaching the whole Web2, Web3 compliance thing is really interesting. And this actually ties back to how you were talking about Web2 users are generally still a little kind of off put by knowing that there's this Web3 component. But with
Right.
with the mass ownership model, it's like every free to play player kind of has a piece of the pie and an opportunity to make something. And they almost, if they want to go that route, other than just make their base look better or increase their progression, they would have to kind of go the crypto way. So I like how they're doing it where you don't have to know anything about crypto. You don't have to be involved in crypto. You can do microtransactions. It pays Web3 people. You get your skins, your land decorations, your statues for your base
So I
progression
actually have
better.
something to say about that
Or,
too.
or you just go, wait a second, maybe I should look at the crypto aspect of this because I could make, like, I feel like it's a gentle nudge to push people in that
What I would
direction,
say
not to
is that the
force them.
difference between them and the other companies or projects that might be doing something like this is that these guys, Heroes of Mafia, they're a lot more transparent about it. They're very upfront and
Agreed.
they're very vocal about the fact they want their game to be played mostly by Web2 players. It's going to be a free to play game that some people decide to invest in. Whereas there are other companies who are like, no, let's take the approach of trying to hide this and not saying anything about it and
That's
putting
right.
it like a little asterisk or a disclaimer at the bottom. Nobody wants that asterisk or disclaimer, and it's that thing that breaks trust.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys have put up multiple, Medium articles and have talked very openly in their Discord about how they want this game to be played by free to play players mostly. And that's a good model. If you look at the
I
other
think so
games that
too.
succeed that do this, the best example again is Karma vs Zombie. Well, most of their players are actually free to play players, and it's because they have their model that includes ad revenue that's coming into the system, et cetera, that they were
That's
able
right.
to keep so stable even in such a terrible market.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they were just getting ad revenue from free to play players to help pay the Web3 players. I liked that as well. So I think more and more of these projects are going to have to continue to navigate this. Attorneys are going to like make a lot of money, over the next
Absolutely.
while as they help them navigate this all. And I mean, we're going to see important updates and changes in the markets in the US because really it's like the US is at the helm of a lot of this and there's no denying that. The EU is leaps and bounds ahead. Japan is leaps and bounds. Most of the rest of the world is leaps and bounds ahead. I just find the US, Canada in particular, and I can't really speak so much to Australia or New Zealand, but US and Canada just feels like it's becoming more and more and more
So
difficult.
yeah, a lot of people have their eyes and ears globally on the BRICS countries because they have overtaken sort of I would say the allied or the United States allied countries in collective GDP, like the G7 countries. They have more collective GDP than they do, and they produce most of the world's goods. So
Yeah,
and they're the ones who are the most forward crypto thinking countries that are all coming together in countries like the UAE and China and South Africa, and they're all embracing that stuff, and they're seeing success.
that's
And,
right.
and and I think that their desire is to break away from the American dollar, which would sound nefarious, but the truth is that they kind of deserve their independence and their autonomy economically just as much as any other countries do.
Just like we deserve Bitcoin to be decentralized to get away from banks. And that's, what a lot of people, when they first get into crypto, that's the thing that resonates when you read that, white paper and you're like, wait, what did this guy do? He solved the double spending problem. We don't need intermediaries. This is a trustless system. Holy crap.
That's right.
We
That's
don't
right.
need a central bank hovering over us. This is incredible. So it's kind of the same thing with that. Like it's just going to be exciting over the next 3 months, 6 months, year, especially as we see more of the evolution. I mean, this is like the longest bear market ever. So, I mean, we're all excited for the next bull run. And the people who kind of have gone through this winter, it's going to be great being vindicated getting on the other side.
So there are some that theorize that this next bull run will be the last super massive, ridiculous one, and that things will start to stabilize after that. And I honestly hope that that happens
Yeah,
because if
we'll
it does,
see.
it'll just be easier to navigate economically the whole industry for
It's
everybody.
hard to say because it's like it depends on the adoption rate and how many people, we've got
Exactly.
how many trillions of people on the planet. The thing that blows me away is like how small the market cap is right now. It's like 1.2 trillion or something. It's like that's got so far to go.
Well,
And
and also if you look at
knows.
particular networks, you think about what their market cap was, during the last bull run and what it is
Right.
now. My great example would be Wax. Wax's market cap was in the billions a couple of years ago, and now we're talking about $100,000 a day. And like, so
It
I
was
know that there's
50x what it's at right now.
exactly,
Yeah.
and I know that there's room for that to grow. And like those are numbers, and this isn't financial advice, but the fact is that just shows the scale at which this can regrow, even if we just go back to where we were before. And this is, where we were before was still just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Well, man, it's been awesome getting to chat with you here again. And I'm sure everyone else watching is grateful to have us back at this. We're going to be consistent.
This is a really great setup. I like chatting
It
with you this
is.
way. I can hear your voice clearly. It's nice to sit in my own throne, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And obviously, guys, make sure you join us in our Discord if you want to chat or, chime in on any of the topics that we covered today. We'd love to hear from you. We also have all our research reports accessible still publicly in there. Come hang out with us. We'll have the information down in the description below. Otherwise, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it. Of course, smash that like button so you can show this great content to lots of other people on YouTube. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care.
See you soon.
Cheers.